Hey, Let's Live for Dummies, Sean here. Well, boys and girls, it is experiment time. After I put out my video yesterday, my HDR, filled with bolt springs and the consistency just not being there, I slept on it. I read your comments and I thoroughly enjoy the banter that goes back and forth because, bouncing ideas off each other sometimes leads to problem solving, and I think it has. So where I left off yesterday, I went to I shot a really light projectile, but not just light, it was a smaller bore size in my HDR, and I saw the best consistency. So I'm gonna do a little short test here to prove the worth of my explanation as to why my HDR50 and maybe some others isn't as consistent as my HDP50. So head over to the bench, do a quick look about, and I'll kind of show you what I mean, and then we'll get to the testing. So I'm gonna try and explain this in the LL4D kind of way. Most of us are searching for, well, we've come to know bore matching as a good way to improve efficiency. Well, in the case of the HDR, I have a big hard-on for 12.7 millimeter ball bearings. They fit the tuning barrel very precisely. And because of that, in a normal launcher that has a fixed barrel, when you fire that projectile, the gas is compressing that projectile down the barrel, and it continues to compress, and that's what's giving your velocity. There's no give in a fixed launcher. In this case, like the HDP50. See where I'm getting at? Having a very nice tight bore in this particular launcher is causing the barrel, as it's trying to compress that extra gas, and remember, the bore is so tight that nothing's really getting by. So what is that doing? It's actually carrying the barrel forward. And when that happens, it's breaking the seal right here. So as it's trying to compress that very tight, very nicely bore match projectile down the barrel, it's actually pulling this barrel forward, releasing gas here, and essentially leading to my inconsistencies. Anywhere from 10 to 40 FPS difference is what I was seeing firing a 12.7 millimeter ball bearing. Now, I went down to 12.5, and that's what most people recommend to shoot, and I still saw inconsistencies. Granted, I argued with myself that it was only marginally better, if at all. Then I went to those shape projectiles, which are much smaller. Well, not much smaller, but 12.4 millimeters. They're smaller than the 12.5. I saw my best consistency to date. Now, this is the test I'm going to perform before I go one step further. I have these 50 caliber riot balls. These are my smallest balls. These are 12.3 millimeters. They're tiny. They weigh 3.5 grams. And here's an example of how they fit in the drum. Oh, hey! They literally fall out. Like, do you see that? They literally, if I drop them too heavy, they go right through. So this is at the extreme end. And there is a reason I'm doing it this way, because that will tell me if I need to take this one step further. And what that one step further is going to be is Home Defense 24 tuning run includes a heavier return spring for your barrel. That's installed. I'm gonna, if this works out, I'm gonna install the factory spring on top of this heavy duty spring, if it'll allow me to. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to search in my box and try and rig something up here. Now, there's a trade-off. If I can get this to fire consistently like I'm searching for, increasing this return tension here also has an effect on your trigger pull. So it might just get stupid hard to pull, and this might be all for naught. But we will start with the 12.3 millimeter riot balls, 3.5 grams, not for power. I'm going to use the same setup I did yesterday, factory bolt spring, HD24 rear adapter, and a freshly pumped 775 PSI output 26 CI bottle. Marker is all gassed up. I'm going to carefully insert this drum so I don't drop these. Just making sure they're all in the right location. Away we go. .462. .468. .460. .472. .476. That one was a little bit higher than I would have liked. .466. That was my last one. There was one flyer there. Now that could be a projectile, but did you see how close those were? All 6 shots were within almost 10 FPS. There was 2 that kind of a little bit higher, but that is way better than I've seen shooting the 12.7 millimeter ball bearings. Now, don't get me wrong. I love those 12.7 millimeter ball bearings. They're cheap, they're plentiful, and I'm not saying don't use them, and I'm going to use them. But first, I need to get to the bottom of that issue. So that showed a significant improvement shooting a very undersized projectile. So there's lots of blow by, so it's not carrying this barrel forward as much. Now, the air is still transferring here and hitting up against that. So, you know, there's gonna be some carryover, but not inside the barrel, if that makes any sense. So I'm gonna quickly open this up, try and stack that barrel return spring, and we'll just do a dry table fire here and see how hard this trigger is. Included HD24 barrel return spring installed. Drum is empty right now. Doubled up on the barrel spring, so the HD24 barrel spring and the factory spring. I mean, it is noticeably harder. There is a slight little hiccup there, but this is not ideal. This is proof of concept, really. And now, oop, hang on, this is hard to do one hand. 12.7 millimeter, 8.4 gram steel ball bearings. Maybe I can show you guys better out here. I'll get behind the camera here. So if you watch, there is like 1/8 of an inch of barrel movement now. This thing used to pull out like 1/4 inch at least. Not ideal. So I've doubled the springs in there. I would say it'd be better to go with one spring that is stronger, but I'm working with what I got. It needs to have finished ends. I have some springs, but if I cut them, it kind of leaves that loose coil and that will dig into the plastic in here. So pending what happens with this test, this could be my fix. Now, it dawned on me when I was doing this, there are some people that probably have already done this. And there's one in particular that I am familiar with, and that's Caitlin. He does some very high pressure shooting with his HDR50. And he actually has a system where he can lock his barrel down. So it prevents that movement. That is the fix right there. That would 100% increase your consistency. But in this case, I want the drum to continue to rotate. I don't want to have to manually do it each time. So maybe just stronger return spring is the answer, but let's hear it up. Did you see what was wrong there? Well, first of all, I didn't have my extension on, so that wouldn't have been a good test. The other problem was I didn't have my cap in. Let's try airing that again. That's a better sound. Okay. My high was 348. My low was 304 in this setup with factory bolt spring and the Home Defense 24 return spring on the barrel. So yeah. 326. 326. 328. 322. Uh-oh, 306. Crap, I'm at 1,000 PSI. Yeah, dang it, dang it. All right, I'm gonna refill the bottle. That is absolutely what I wanted to see. I'm barking up the right tree. Let me refill this. We'll do it one more time because, gosh, dang it. Freshly refilled, balls out of the trap. $342. $328. $332. $334. $326. $326. Is that the last one? That was the last one. Okay. I'm going in the right direction. Now, that first shot, I did just air the tank. That usually happens. First shot really cracks off, but 326 to 332, I think it was, or 334, except for the one higher flyer. First one, yeah, that was within 10 FPS, all 6 rounds, instead of within 40 that I was seeing, whoops, on the factory, or sorry, on the tuning barrel's return spring. Yeah, is it a fix? It's a workaround. Now, I'm gonna have to obviously get the correct size spring in here. Come on, you bugger. There we go. Now, this isn't for everybody because it did make the trigger pull noticeably harder. Not impossible, but in my case, my OCD, I'm okay with that. But problem solved? Or did I just gain some other problem? I'm gonna get some more springs, of course, and we'll keep testing, but that's promising. So thanks to everybody for the comments, and some of you that maybe didn't comment and have been doing this already, like Keelan, who locks his barrel down. Wow, yeah, made world of difference in my HDR.